Welcome to this overview of recent developments within the consultant contract negotiations. As many of you may know, this current round of contract talks has taken longer than anticipated, having begun in September 2013. While the process has been slow, we feel that progress has been made, and we think it is important that we share some of this detail with you. It is vital to note that the negotiations are ongoing and nothing has been finalised. It is perhaps worth having a quick recap on what the 2003 consultant contract looks like, so that you will be able to better understand some of the developments that are being proposed. If you are already familiar with the terms and conditions of the 2003 contract, you may wish to skip ahead. The consultant contract consists of a standard 10 programmed activities, or PAs. PAs are how working time is divided up under the 2003 contract, with one PA being worth 4 hours in plain time. A standard full-time contract of 10 PAs makes up a 40-hour week. Basic pay consists of 8 separate pay points, through which a consultant progresses incrementally over 19 years. The starting salary, at present, is £76,000. The current top of the scale is around £102,000. While progression through the scale isn't automatic, we have found that the vast majority of consultants will progress without any difficulty. Plain time, under the contract, is Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Any time outside of this constitutes premium time, which attracts additional pay. The additional pay, in premium hours, is valued at time and a third. Alternatively, for work undertaken in premium time, consultants can instead choose to work PAs which last only 3 hours instead of 4. This equates to the same value as a time and a third. Consultants also receive an on-call availability supplement depending on the frequency of their on-call commitment and the type of work they undertake. This supplement ranges between 1% and 8% of basic salary. As well as direct clinical care, consultants also undertake work known as SPAs, or supporting professional activities. This is non-clinical time, used to undertake activities like training, medical education, CPD, audit, and any other activities to support appraisal and revalidation, providing time for the quality underpinnings of a consultant's role. The 2003 contract places the same value on SPA time as on DCC time. Consultants should typically receive 2.5 PAs, or 10 hours a week, but in some trusts, this has been allowed to erode over time. The job planning process is critical to the contract and allows consultants and their managers to jointly agree what work they should undertake as part of their contract. There exists a mediation and appeals process, though these are not absolutely binding upon the employer. There are some safeguards in the contract. One notable safeguard is contained in Schedule 3, Paragraph 6. This allows individuals to decline to undertake elective work during premium time unless they agree to it. The protection also applies to those who routinely deal with acute and emergency work. There is, however, no clear maximum frequency for all emergency work. It is also worth noting that consultants on this contract are entitled to have access to the Clinical Excellence Awards scheme. This scheme operates at both a local and a national level. It is designed to reward those who contribute the most to the health service through their work. The funding for the employer-based scheme, which we will be focusing on in these negotiations, has been unilaterally reduced by the government over the last few years, and now amounts, in general, to 0.2 new awards per eligible consultant. In other words, 1 award annually for every 5 consultants. We know that around half of all consultants have at least one CEA, though increasingly, many trusts are failing to run CEA awards rounds. We are currently undertaking legal action to clarify our understanding that CEAs are contractual. Crucially, CEAs account for 8 to 10% of the overall consultant pay bill. It's also worth looking at where these negotiations started. Neither consultants nor the BMA asked for these negotiations. They were demanded by the government. but we have negotiated in good faith, trying to secure a good deal for consultants. The government and NHS employers were clear that they considered the removal of Schedule 3, Paragraph 6, the safeguard we previously mentioned, to be a red line in negotiations. They also sought to remove what they saw as automatic pay progression through the 8 pay points. Tied to this, they also wanted to reduce the starting salary and the top pay point of the scale. The government repeatedly stated its aim to increase the amount of out-of-hours work undertaken by consultants to meet their statements around 7-day services without offering any additional funding. This included extending plain time to 10 p.m. on Monday through to Saturday. It was also planned that CEAs would be removed, including those already held by consultants. To replace CEAs, they proposed a new performance pay scheme in which awards would be time-limited and non-pensionable. In spite of the difficult constraints imposed by the government, we felt that there were potential gains to be made through negotiations. This included a pay scale more suited to the new career average pension scheme. We sought to make funding for CEAs contractual and ensure that they maintained their value. We also wanted to retain the current definitions of plain time and the value of the current starting salary. Additionally, we felt that improved safeguards could be negotiated, particularly those around compensatory rest for consultants scheduled to work following a busy night on call. This is to reflect the fact that consultants' working practices have changed greatly over the last 15 years. Our members have also emphasised the value of SPAs. We sought to protect these. Following years of difficult discussions, we received the outline of an offer in March 2016. The Department of Health and NHS employers' proposals for a new contract would have included a 2-point pay scale under which individuals would move from the starting salary to the top of the scale in 6 years. The starting salary would be around £76,000, meaning the government has accepted our insistence about the starting salary not be lowered. The pay scale would then jump to a second pay point of around £97,000. Access to this second pay point would be reached through a performance gateway, though it would be expected that almost all consultants would meet the criteria necessary to progress. A salary scale such as this, whereby the individual receives more money earlier in their career, would be beneficial under the Career Average Care Pension Scheme. These would be contractual protections not present in the 2003 contract, designed to ensure the safety and well-being of consultants working in a 7-day service. These protections would apply to all of a consultant's work, elective and emergency. These safeguards covered a number of vital issues. They set a maximum requirement of 13 weekends a year for any kind of work. Although there are currently no restrictions in the 2003 contract on the number of weekends that can be worked for urgent and emergency work, the BMA believes that 13 weekends is too frequent, but the government and employers would not reduce that number. They also set a maximum of 10 weekend days of elective work. Again, this does not represent the BMA's view, limiting hours and shifts. Under the March 2016 offer, plain time would have been redefined as Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Saturday and Sunday would have remained as premium time. In addition, we agreed an updated system of recognising and paying for unsocial hours work, decided upon through a matrix of on-call frequency and numbers of hours actually worked. This was aimed at ensuring that those working the most onerous and social hours patterns would be appropriately remunerated. Following months of further negotiation, by November 2016, there were a number of improvements to the offer. This included reviewing the proposals for a 2-point salary scale to find ways of ensuring that the top point of the pay scale reached the current level by 2021/22. Little data has been held in the past by the Department of Health and NHS employers about how much work consultants actually undertook in the out-of-hours period. Such data is currently being collected by the DH and the NHSE. Consequently, they asked to withdraw the proposed unsocial hours pay scheme. As a result, it was decided that the current definition of plain time should remain at Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m, together with retention of the current system of on-call availability supplements. They also proposed ways in which a new performance pay scheme could build on the existing framework of the Clinical Excellence Awards as a transitional model. Pension flexibilities were also considered for those who were at risk under the new pay scale of breaching their annual and lifetime pension allowances. Throughout our engagement with consultant members, they have made clear that they would prefer to have the choice to remain on their current contracts, as they did when the 2003 contract was first introduced. During meetings with the Department of Health, we proposed offering a choice between the 2003 contract and a new contract. The Department of Health and NHS employers were very reluctant, but eventually suggested that they would be prepared to explore a choice option in a scenario in which there was no overall ballot on the terms of the new contract. We were very clear about the presentational and political complexity of such an offer. Nevertheless, we were willing to consider all options in the interests of securing the best deal for the greatest number of our members as possible. We made it clear to NHS employers and the Department of Health that further significant improvements to the offer would be needed for us to be able to consider proceeding without a ballot. This has led us to the offer we are considering today. The consultant negotiators have been exploring an offer which would allow individuals to choose whether to remain on the 2003 contract, albeit with temporarily reduced annual uplifts, which we will address later in this presentation, or move to a new contract. As you have now seen, throughout the negotiations to date, there have been some significant differences between the 2003 contract and the contract being proposed. An individual choice could mean that everyone could be able to make the best choice for themselves, rather than have their contractual arrangements determined by a majority view. We have been very clear in our discussions that such a choice should be available to both consultants and trainees when they come to apply for a consultant post. The Department of Health and NHS employers have agreed to this proposal in principle. As such, the point of negotiation is around the detail of the contract offer and how widely a choice option is extended. Ideally, this choice would extend as far as possible into the future. However, this would create financial uncertainties which could result in worsening the new contract offered. So what does this mean for existing consultants on the 2003 contract, or indeed anyone who chose to take up the 2003 contract when starting? There would be no change to the current terms and conditions for 2003 contract holders, unless they chose to move on to the new contract. The 2003 contract would continue with its current 19-year salary scale, with Schedule 3, Paragraph 6, with 3 and 4 hour PAs, and, as noted, the current definition of plain and premium time. Significantly, one potential improvement to the offer has been a suggestion that existing local clinical excellence awards would be contractually secured, subject to extending the renewal/review process to include all higher-level local awards. The choice to move to the new contract would have to be made within a defined window, though this has yet to be agreed. The proposed 2018 contract contains a 2-point pay scale. The starting salary will be the same as at present, and we intend that the top of the scale will also be the same as at present. There would need to be a transition period of a few years, with a pay scale with perhaps 5 points evolving into the 2-point pay scale. In order to fund our insistence that the eventual second point of the new pay scale be the same as for the 2003 contract, the government and employers have said that there would need to be a period of a few years in which the 2003 contract's annual uplifts, as determined by the DDRB process, would be smaller than those awarded to the 2018 contract. Once the transition period is complete, both contracts would receive pay uplifts of equal proportion. The choice scenario has led to significant improvements in the offer. In particular, it has led to a movement from the earlier safeguard of 13 weekends maximum to a limit of 8 weekends a year for any kind of work, as well as protections for evening work, which are still being discussed. The contract would use the same definitions of plain and premium time as the 2003 contract. A new suite of safeguards covering a range of provisions would replace Schedule 3, Paragraph 6. The new performance pay scheme would also be made contractual and have set funding based on the current pot. This would be an annual award and would not be pensionable. The Department of Health would invest the funding that would formerly have been spent on pension provision into the performance award scheme. In the past, it was advantageous to secure as much as possible into pensionable pay, But with the progressive reduction in lifetime allowance of pensionable pay, this is no longer likely to be the case. It is likely that current consultants who are CEA holders will retain those awards should they choose to move to the 2018 contract. They will also be able to make a one-time choice to retain or forego their pensionability. It is worth emphasising that your Consultants Committee have only granted permission for its negotiators to explore what a deal might look like, in a scenario in which people are afforded an individual choice rather than a collective ballot. As we have said, none of this is yet finalised. These more developed proposals would then be shared with your Consultants Committee. If your Consultants Committee decide that the offer is satisfactory, this would be followed by a period of member engagement in which the detail of the offer was explained and feedback sought.